The man noticed her at dawn, crouched beside the trash bins behind the towering glass building, her hands trembling as she searched through discarded paper bags and half-empty boxes, and something inside him broke before the day had even begun. In a city that never slowed down, where suits rushed past suffering without a glance, the sight of a woman reduced to scavenging for food behind a place of wealth felt like a quiet scream no one else was hearing. The wind cut through the alley, the sky was still gray, and for a moment it looked like the whole world had forgotten her. If you believe that kindness can change lives, that second chances matter, and that humanity still exists even in the hardest places, take a moment right now to like this video, comment your thoughts, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to the channel for more powerful stories like this. Michael Carter had not planned to stop that morning. He was already late, his shoes worn thin at the heels, his coat barely holding back the cold. Life had been unkind to him lately, pressing down with bills, responsibilities, and a quiet grief he carried alone. At 38, he was a maintenance worker in downtown Chicago, fixing what others broke and cleaning what others ignored. His job barely paid enough, but it was honest, and honesty was the last thing he still felt proud of. As he walked toward the service entrance of the building he worked in, he noticed the woman again, thin, pale, her dark hair tied messily as if mirrors were a luxury she no longer remembered. She looked out of place in the shadow of a skyscraper worth millions, yet somehow she belonged there more than anyone else. Michael hesitated, then turned back. He had seen homelessness before. The city was full of stories people preferred not to read, but there was something different about her. She did not look drunk or aggressive or lost in addiction. She looked exhausted in a way that came from carrying too much for too long. Her hands paused over a torn sandwich wrapper, and for a second she closed her eyes, as if embarrassed by her own hunger. Michael felt a familiar ache in his chest, the same ache he had felt years ago when his wife passed away after a long illness, leaving him with a house full of silence and a heart full of regrets. He approached carefully, keeping his distance so as not to frighten her. He remembered how people looked at him when he had been at his lowest, when grief had hollowed him out and money had nearly disappeared. Without thinking too much, he took out the lunch he had packed for himself, a simple sandwich and an apple, all he could afford to bring. He placed it gently on a clean piece of cardboard near her and stepped back. He did not want thanks, and he did not want attention. He just wanted her to eat. The woman looked up, startled, her eyes sharp despite the fatigue. For a brief moment, something unreadable passed across her face, something that did not match the image of a homeless woman searching for scraps. But hunger won, and she reached for the food slowly, as if afraid it might vanish. Michael nodded once and turned away, his heart strangely lighter as he walked into the building. The building itself was massive, a symbol of power and profit, housing offices that dealt in numbers so large they felt unreal to him. Michael spent his days fixing elevators, mopping floors, replacing lights, always invisible, always necessary. Yet that morning, his mind kept drifting back to the woman in the alley. He wondered how she ended up there. What choices or tragedies had pushed her behind the dumpsters of a building that represented success? He wondered if anyone else had noticed her at all. Over the next few days, he saw her again and again. Sometimes she sat on the curb, sometimes she walked slowly around the block, always keeping close to the building. Each time, Michael left a bit of food where she could find it. He never spoke to her, and she never approached him, but there was an unspoken understanding between them, a quiet exchange of dignity in a place that often stripped it away. Michael's own struggles were growing heavier. His landlord had given him a warning about late rent. His hours had been cut. At night, he lay awake staring at the ceiling, asking God questions he never expected answers to. He wondered if kindness even mattered anymore, if small gestures could truly make a difference in a world so broken. Yet every morning, when he saw the woman eating the food he left, something inside him refused to give up. One evening, as rain poured down the streets and neon lights blurred into reflections on the pavement, Michael noticed something unsettling. The woman was standing across the street, staring up at the building with an intensity that felt almost painful. She was soaked, her clothes clinging to her thin frame, but she did not move. She looked not like someone seeking shelter, but like someone confronting a memory. Michael watched from the doorway, unsure why his heart was racing. He felt an urge to go to her, to ask if she was okay, but fear and habit held him back. The next morning, everything changed. Michael arrived at work to find the building buzzing with tension. Security was stricter, executives were pacing, and whispers moved through the halls like electricity. There was talk of an unexpected inspection, a surprise visit from ownership. Michael barely paid attention until he saw her. She walked through the lobby, wearing a tailored coat, her hair neatly styled, her posture strong and commanding. The same woman who had searched through trash for food now moved with purpose, flanked by managers who looked nervous in her presence. Michael froze, his mop slipping from his hands. His mind struggled to reconcile the image before him with the woman he had fed behind the building. Her name was Elizabeth Warren, and she was the CEO who owned the building. The revelation hit Michael like a wave. Embarrassment burned through him, followed by confusion, then fear. He replayed every moment in his head, every assumption he had made. He had believed she was homeless, broken, forgotten. He had never imagined that the woman eating his sandwich was one of the most powerful people in the city. Elizabeth moved through the building, observing everything with quiet intensity. She noticed the cracks in the walls, the flickering lights, the overworked staff. She noticed Michael, too. Their eyes met briefly, and for a split second, recognition flashed across her face. But she said nothing and continued walking. What Michael did not know was that Elizabeth had been testing something far more important than the building structure. After years of running corporations and signing deals, she had begun to feel disconnected from humanity. Success had insulated her, surrounded her with people who wanted something from her. So she disappeared for a while, dressed in old clothes, stripped of her status, to see how the world treated someone with nothing. She chose her own building deliberately, wanting to observe from the shadows the very system she controlled. And in those shadows, she found Michael. She found kindness without cameras, generosity without recognition, compassion without expectation. She found a man who gave what little he had to someone he believed needed it more. Days later, Michael was called into a meeting he feared would cost him his job. His hands shook as he stood in a conference room far beyond anything he felt he belonged in. Elizabeth stood at the head of the table, her expression calm but intense. She spoke about values, about leadership, about the true measure of a person's worth. She spoke about how buildings were made of more than steel and glass, how they were held together by the people who maintained them. Michael listened, his heart pounding, as she told the story of a man who fed a stranger without knowing who she was. She spoke of how that act restored her faith in humanity. She spoke of how kindness, when no one is watching, is the purest form of integrity. By the end of that meeting, Michael's life had shifted in ways he never imagined. Elizabeth offered him not just gratitude, but opportunity. She ensured his job was secure, his hours restored, his future no longer hanging by a thread. More than that, she established programs within the company to support workers like him, people who lived quietly at the edges of survival. But the greatest change was not financial. It was the way Michael walked out of that building that day, shoulders straighter, heart fuller. He realized that his smallest act, done in a moment of empathy, had rippled outward in ways he could never predict. He realized that even in his own pain, he had chosen kindness, and that choice had mattered. Elizabeth returned to her world of boardrooms and decisions, but she was changed too. She never forgot what it felt like to be invisible, to rely on the mercy of a stranger. She carried that lesson into every decision she made, shaping a company culture rooted in humanity rather than profit alone. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that even the smallest kindness can change lives, please take a moment now to like this video, share it with someone who needs encouragement, and subscribe to the channel for more stories that restore faith in humanity. Before this story ends, we have one special request for you. Please comment below and tell us, have you ever helped someone without knowing who they truly were, or has a stranger's kindness ever changed your life? Your story might inspire someone else today. Michael still walks past that alley every morning. The trash bins are cleaner now, the shadows less heavy, but he never forgets what happened there. He never forgets the woman he thought was homeless, the CEO who owned the building, and the quiet reminder that compassion does not ask for titles and humanity does not wear name tags. In a world obsessed with status, one simple act of kindness proved that hearts, not power, are what truly change the world.